So how fundamental to this is 21 million?
It's everything. Yeah. So it's the reason that we're here talking today. Bitcoin is the discovery of digital scarcity. It's the permanent solution to this idea of inflation or printing money. The unfortunate side effect of Bitcoin is that people who don't understand that the innovation was removing the printing press from the hands of everyone view it as, oh, now I can become a central banker, right? So the broader crypto scene is people who want to be their own central bankers. Bitcoin and Bitcoiners are the people who understand that we've got to separate money production from the hands of any given individual, so that we can all use this neutral currency and it can accurately store value over time.
And it's a non-negotiable for you. We know because
21 million is non-negotiable. So I wrote a couple articles a few years ago about this, and the reason I wrote these articles was really a few reasons. Like, first of all, a lot of crypto marketers will compare their currency's inflation rate to Bitcoin's inflation rate, because every 10 minutes, 6.25 Bitcoin are released through the process of processing transactions, which we call mining. That categorization is totally wrong. Like, Bitcoin does not have inflation. Bitcoin has a supply of 21 million that is released on a fixed schedule that we can all verify on our home computers.
So they already exist.
I believe that they already exist.
Yeah, I know.
And I think about
Parker
it.
told me about this last night.
Yeah, so I think about it as your mom bakes 21 cookies, and you get one cookie every 10 minutes for doing your math homework.
This is how I got like this.
Exactly. Like, you don't have control of all the cookies yet, but do the cookies exist? Yes. If somebody comes in and says, actually, I have another 21 million cookies, like, those are a different set of cookies.
So I need to ask a couple of technical questions on that.
Sure.
Then. So at the point where a block is found,
yes,
and the Coinbase reward is created, and is a UTXO created at that point? So, like, I don't understand this part.
Yeah. So when the Coinbase, when a block is discovered, the mining pool that discovers the block is issued the subsidy, and it's issued as a UTXO.
So the UTXO is created at that point.
The UTXO, yes, is created at that point.
So I don't think all 21 million exist then.
So they have to already exist, because we know that the supply is 21 million, and then we also know if the schedule has been broken. So if a miner finds 12.5 Bitcoin at the next block, like, we know that that's invalid. That's not Bitcoin. That's a hard fork.
Yeah.
Right? But how do we know that it's a hard fork if the Bitcoin doesn't already exist? We already know that there's 21 million. We know exactly how they're released. And if anything about that schedule changes, that's a hard fork that we can claim and sell for more Bitcoin.
So I'm going to argue back with you that I don't think they exist, because I was thinking about this quite a bit last night. Okay. So I understand your point in that can only be 21 million, and then every 10 minutes, these are issued out to the pool or the lucky solo miner. But my argument is that you can only identify Bitcoin by UTXOs, and therefore those Bitcoins that haven't been issued yet, because that don't have a UTXO, so they don't exist. But the software only allows Bitcoin to be issued up until the point it hits 21 million.
But we know exactly where those Bitcoin are living in future blocks. Like, you can pick any block in the future, and I can tell you how much Bitcoin lives in the Coinbase reward there. And what we don't know is the existing UTXO set, how that's going to move. Like, the HODL waves is how we kind of see the existing UTXO set and how it moves over time. We have very little clarity. Like, Satoshi could, market sell his 1 million Bitcoin for Ethereum proof of stake, tomorrow. Seems a little unlikely to me, but they could, right? Because they have the keys to it. The UTXOs are under the controls of their keys. What Satoshi can't do is, I don't know what block we're at, but 5 blocks from now, change the 6.25 subsidy to something else.
But that's, to me, that's the rules that says what Bitcoin can be created at that point. The rules say they don't exist yet, but they say they can be created at that point. When that block is created, the consensus rules pass, and those Bitcoin are created. Again, I don't know the technicals of how, what, or what part happens when they're created, but the UTXOs are issued at that point. Therefore, once the UTXOs are issued, then that Bitcoin exists.
So I think of it as again, like Bitcoin is the software that we run on our computers, and it's the private keys we hold to our Bitcoin addresses. And the software we run, the node, like has the roadmap laid out. It has all 21 million Bitcoin and exactly when they're going to be released in which block. And so I think that if you understand how this system works, you can just assume that all 21 million Bitcoin exist, and you can profit from that information. Like miners out there are not like investing in massive mining infrastructure, you know, with the knowledge that this thing could change. Like they're doing it because
I agree.
It's fixed. They understand that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin. And so it's just better to think of them as already existing. The other thing, so again, the reason that I think that it's important to think like this, and it's very esoteric.
I know.
But when shitcoiners are marketing like, oh, Ethereum is now ultrasound money because it issues less, you know, per day than Bitcoin, like that's insane. You can't, first of all, you can't change something to become more sound. That's an oxymoron. Number two, like you don't know the ultimate supply of Ethereum. You don't know the ultimate supply of gold. You don't know the ultimate supply of really any currency because none of their supplies are credible.
You don't even know the current supply.
Exactly. With Bitcoin, you know that there will only ever be 21 million, and you know exactly how they're going to be unlocked or issued. So I just think switching your mindset into understanding that they already exist helps you to understand sound money principles and helps you to understand why broader crypto is, in my opinion, a scam.
Yeah, no, I can understand the mind switch. I just don't agree they exist yet. What do you think, Danny? Do they exist?
I don't really see why it matters. Like either way, not the 21 million, but like whether they already exist or they're getting unlocked over time, like it makes no real difference. I think the idea for like a marketing side of things is really good in the terms of like clarifying the difference, but it makes no difference, does it?
Yes, I mean, if that's the only reason, then that's a good reason, because you have these idiots out here marketing Ethereum as ultrasound money, which is, there's nothing even remotely minimally sound about it. And they're looking at this one metric and saying the inflation rate is what makes it ultrasound money. And they're like, look at Bitcoin's inflation. It's, you know, whatever percent per year, 1 point something percent per year. The way I look at it is, no, Bitcoin's inflation is zero because
it's always been zero.
The supply is fixed. It's the only currency that has ever existed that has a fixed supply. All other currencies don't have a fixed supply. Even the other cryptos that say that they have fixed supply, they're centralized, and so it can be changed. And there's plenty of examples of all of those other cryptos changing. And then the fact that, and the innovation of Bitcoin is the discovery of digital scarcity, and broader crypto is is just proof that things that are digital are extremely easy to copy. Like you can copy Bitcoin's code base, change a few things here or there, launch your own currency. You've proven that things that are digital are typically not scarce. But what you can't do is create more than 21 million Bitcoin.
So I see your point now that there's an inflation rate of zero.
Yeah,
there's just a release schedule.
It's a schedule.
It's a schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the second article I wrote.
That's actually a really good point, and I can see the benefit there. Then explain it to people, because another thing I was discussing with Parker yesterday was that my way of explaining Bitcoin to people is evolving. It's moving from telling them what Bitcoin is to telling them what is wrong with fiat money, and then what Bitcoin solves. Now, I think it's going to be far easier to say there's an inflation rate of zero and there's 21 million and there's a release schedule than to say there's this inflation rate and every 4 years there's a halving. And like, because you have to get into all the difficulty, you have to get into all this other shit you don't need to get into. That just makes it easier. I get it.
So then
I think you're wrong, but Jeremy, do they already exist? Yes or no?
No.
Oh, wow.
But I'm agreeing with you. It's a useful thing to say, and I'm going to use that because sometimes it's better to do it that way.
All right. Well, I've changed maybe one mind, or at least I've tipped the needle a little bit.
You tip the needle.
So the other reason that I wrote the first article and the second article is when you understand that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin because Bitcoin is in fact the supply of 21 million. Like you can't separate the two. You then realize that the other marketing angle that a lot of crypto and shitcoin founders will take is this idea that at some point in the future, Bitcoin will be unsecure.
It's one of the most regular emails I get.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what happens in 3 halvings time if the Bitcoin price are at this point, and we have a much lower hash rate. We're less secure, and what if that is a trend? Like, can you get somebody on to talk about this? And I'm like, we can't make a whole show on that, but it is a question that comes up a lot.
And it's a really tough question to tackle because I don't think that the answer is what people want to hear. So the way that I think about this is Bitcoin secure today?
Deal with it at the time.
Well, is it secure today?
Yes.
Was it secure 5 years ago?
I mean, I don't think you can say whether it is binary secure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it still alive?
Yeah.
So then it was secure 5 years ago.
Yeah. No, I think what you can do is you can calculate the cost. You can do a couple of things. You can calculate the cost of how much hash power you have to.
I think that's the wrong approach personally.
But just bear with me. To be able to attack it, okay, you have to be able to do that. But then you also have to rationalize the actual process of being able to accumulate that hash power, which is even more likely. So, when somebody says, well, you need $20 billion of mining, yeah, fine. Oh, well, somebody's got 50 billion, they can do it. Yeah, but you can't actually go and accumulate the hash power. And if you do, other people will start accumulating hash power. So I think you can create a risk model, okay, of how much hash power there is, how much do you need, how easy is it to get it? Because look at BCH or BSV, you could very easily accumulate that hash power and you could destroy those networks, right? It's very easy to do. With Bitcoin, it's close to impossible right now. So that's the way I think of it, like how risky, like what is the risk model rather than the cost?
So I think about it as the network security is discovered on the free market. So it will only and the fact that it's alive today, 13 years after its founding, is proof that the incentives to secure it were set up correctly. So Bitcoin's hash rate was, a quarter of what it is today 5 years ago, but it's here today and the hash rate is now at an all-time high. What hasn't changed throughout that time is that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. The other thing to think about, and I think anyone who's doing any sort of modeling using the US dollar is on the wrong path. Because the value of the dollar is constantly changing, the value of Bitcoin is constantly changing. You have to take those as things that are going to continue to be true forever with Bitcoin. The value of the currency is always going to change, even when it's globally adopted by 8 billion people, because people are exchanging it constantly. So what I look at is there incentive today to invest in Bitcoin mining or invest in securing this thing? And the incentive is, is it profitable to actually do that? And the answer is unequivocally yes. Like large companies around the world are investing massive amounts of capital into mining Bitcoin because it's a profitable endeavor. And it will always be true because Bitcoin mining is actually part of the energy production industry. It's not like its own like carve out industry. It's like part of energy production is that you have to balance the amount of energy you're producing with the amount of demand for the energy. And you can never perfectly balance it. And so you're always going to have a scenario where, you produce too much energy and demand doesn't quite meet it. And you need to do something with that energy or waste it. So today, when we look at energy production, especially in the renewables, there's a lot of times when the supply and demand are out of whack. And so they have to shut down production. So like I was reading a statistic about wind energy that said that in California, I think in like 2018, 2019, 17% of the time they're shutting off production of energy. They're producing way too much wind energy than they can deliver to the grid. Well, what if you had a tool that would always buy your wind energy?
But it's only going to buy the wind energy, buy it, if it can mine Bitcoin.
Sure.
Or enough Bitcoin. And the unknown is come 2141, but probably much before then, what do they actually mine in that block? What do they get out of that block?
Sure. Well, and I like to point to another kind of historical Bitcoin moment, which is when Laszlo purchased 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. Do you guys know what the transaction fee he paid was?
I do, because I read your article.
Guess.
I don't know, 5 sats?
1 Bitcoin.
Ha!
Today, we pay, I think each block, and we'd have to pull up like blockstream.info to see exactly what the transaction fee is, but tens or potentially hundreds of millions of sats in transaction fees. At today's price, it's not that bad. Like in the future, as the value of Bitcoin changes, 10 million sats could be an astronomical fee to be paying.
If enough people are using the base chain.
But we know that the number of users of Bitcoin is continually increasing over time.
But they might do this. They might just be hodlers.
That's great.
Or using the Lightning Network.
That's number go up technology right there.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you could have a scenario where there just isn't the number of transactions to create.
I don't think that can ever be the case because, first of all, you have to make layer 1 transactions to use the Lightning Network. You have to settle your Lightning channels eventually. Like you have to manage channels. And so people will, even if you're using the Lightning Network, you're always going to be at some point making layer 1 transactions. And then on top of that, the difficulty adjustment of Bitcoin ensures that Bitcoin is always paying the market rate for energy. Like if it's not profitable for a majority of miners to mine Bitcoin at the current value and with the current transaction fee environment or subsidy environment, they'll shut off production. The difficulty adjustment kicks in, and then it becomes profitable for somebody to mine at that value. So the difficulty adjustment, I think, really takes care of a lot of this issue. Like it will always be profitable for somebody to be mining Bitcoin.
No, agreed. Yeah. But how many people are competing to mine that Bitcoin, and how much security is there at that time?
I think, and bringing everything kind of back to energy, like one of my visions for the future is that energy production is also extremely localized, right?
Yeah.
So, solar panels on your roof or whatever, or a local nuclear power plant or something, a little power plant that you can put in your backyard, something like that. And you're going to individually have that problem of supply and demand for energy. So it's like you're always going to need a tool to buy up any excess supply, and monetizing any amount of that is better than shutting off production.
So hash rate's basically just gone up forever.
Yeah, it's on an all-time high right now. I mean, it crashed 40% when China banned Bitcoin.
But that came back pretty quick.
Oh my gosh, yeah, almost immediately.
But do you think there's a time where like the sort of ratio between price and subsidy reached a point where it has to start dropping again?
I don't think so, because again, like, and the problem that Bitcoin mining solves is not a Bitcoin problem, it's an energy problem. Like we're always going to be imperfectly efficient at energy production. And this is a tool that energy producers can always use or rely on in a situation where they can't, deliver the energy to, people. Like it never competes with individuals for energy. Like in the UK, I'm sure all Bitcoin miners have essentially shut off production.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's so expensive to buy energy there that it's,
even before this, we just don't really have mining. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's too expensive before that.
Exactly. So it's like mining always goes to the places that is the remote stranded energy, the cheapest energy, the excess hydro. Every single renewable energy setup should have ASICs on site because it's just a tool for them. So yeah, I don't think it'll ever be a problem. And I think the prediction articles that I've read have all made a lot of mistakes because they're trying to measure the value of the security in like the dollar, but the dollar is changing value and the Bitcoin is changing value. And so you have to think about it from Austrian first principles in order to kind of have a deeper understanding of it, I think.
Well, this wasn't the show we expected to make at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Last point on that, though, before we close out. That's like the argument that all the ETH people are going to now try and target, though, that like Bitcoin mining means you can't have a light on. Like now they've gone to proof of stake, that's going to be attacked like hard.
Yep.
Well, they already started, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, they started as soon as they knew. Their timing for that transition in terms of like trying to sort of spread FUD is perfect. But do you worry about that? Like, what do you think about what Ethereum?
I just, I'm maybe like naively optimistic about Bitcoin. I think that because we have Bitcoin, the transition to sound money isn't going to be as catastrophic as some people are thinking. It's not going to be pleasant for people. I think that the Ethereum marketing is going to get more aggressive, but just the fact that Ethereum itself is inflation and they keep changing things, and so it doesn't have a credible monetary policy. And on top of that, it is money. It doesn't really do all that much else besides be money. You can print your own money on top of their money. You can produce some tokens, some NFTs, which are, again, kind of like forms of money. So it's just money, but it's way crappier at being money than Bitcoin. And so no amount of marketing will ultimately overcome that. Is it going to get worse? Sure. I think what we're seeing is there's more and more people that are waking up to this idea that Bitcoin mining actually fortifies the grid. So we're already seeing articles, here in Texas about during the recent heat wave, the grid was able to tap into 1% additional energy by just asking the miners to shut off production. And what's cool about mining is, you just flip a switch and then the energy is diverted somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then if there's too much energy, just flip the switch back on, you start buying the cheap energy again. So it's a really, again, super useful tool for energy production. I think the economic reality of the fact that Bitcoin is sound money will just overcome any sort of marketing that is levied against it, as it has for the last 13 years. I mean, I was just talking to some family members the other day. And they're like, man, I've been hearing some really bad stuff about Bitcoin. And it's like, yeah, that's always been the case. There's never been a moment. I've been in Bitcoin for many years, and it's always been dumped on by everybody, right? Mainstream media, governments, shitcoiners, like everybody is constantly dumping on Bitcoin. But the thing is anti-fragile. It absorbs all that and becomes stronger. And I think the clearest example of that one of the clearest examples is when China banned mining last year.
Yep.
You saw a 40% crash in hash rate, and then it immediately hit, all-time high again after the course of maybe like 3 months. And the position that Bitcoin is in after the fact is way stronger than before because all that hash rate has dispersed across the globe.
Yep.
So when you try to ban this thing, you increase the level of decentralization of it. It gets stronger every time you attack it.